Welcome to another Walter Football video. I'm Charlie Campbell, Senior Draft Analyst. Before we get going here, I recommend that you click into the settings here, speed it up to 1.25 or 1.5. I think that makes the videos a lot better. So let's get into this week's topic. This week's topic is strengths of the draft. Now that we're at the end of the 2020 regular season, heading into the conference championships, the bowl games, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of hit on some positions that have emerged over this weird season as strengths for this draft and some positions that are looking a little thin and lacking talent for this draft. So let's get right into it. Positions of strength. One that stands out to me is offensive tackle, and that's kind of cool to see because we had a number of years there where it was pretty lean at that position. Then last year, we had a rebound of it. There was, 5 offensive tackles that went in the top 20. It thinned out a little bit after that. Whereas this year's draft class, I think you might not have as many top shelf, top 16 kind of guys that last year did, where a quarter of the top 16 were offensive tackles that went off the board. I think this year you have a high-end talent in Penei Sewell, and then you have some more guys that are mid to late first round, second round picks, but there's a good amount of them where you have Slater from Northwestern, Darisaw from Virginia, Alex Leatherwood from Alabama, Cosme from Texas, Eichenberg from Notre Dame. And we'll see if any others emerge, say in the Senior Bowl or Combine. Some guys kind of rise up later in the process. But at any rate, with that group, we're looking at a pretty nice offensive tackle class for the second year in a row. And I think it's really going to provide some nice values and options for teams that are picking late in the first round and teams picking early in the second round. I think that's kind of that sweet spot where you're getting good value for that pick. With the talent you're getting there at a premium position. Next up, wide receiver. I mean, we could do this one every year. College football is just pumping out receivers year after year like it's going out of style. I think this year's class is a little interesting, whereas there may not be a huge amount that go in the top 25, but I think there's going to be a really good class of receivers in the second round and third round on the second night of the draft. And I think we saw something kind of like this a few years ago in the draft class where you had Marquise Brown go in the first round, but then after the first round you had some really nice values and guys like Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, and there was a strong depth of receiver on that Friday night group. I think this year is going to be similar to that. I think you definitely have 3 top 20 receivers, so that strengthens it right there when you look at Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. I think Smith is a top 20 pick at this point with the way he's played this year, even with the lean frame. I think Waddle, with the leg fracture or ankle sprain, whatever they're calling it exactly, not serious enough to keep him out of the top 20. Teams see him as a potential Tyreek Hill type receiver. So I think wide receiver once again is going to be a really good class. Teams are going to find some nice values on the second day. Another position of strength is safety. This one's a little more fluid because we've kind of had an odd situation in terms with this whole virus thing, because you had guys like Javon Holland sit out. Andre Sisco, ball hawk from safety, gets injured in a pregame collision early in the season. Then he's out for the rest of the year going into the draft. Paris Ford opts out partway through the season. And then you have other guys that have played well, like Trayvon Moehrig from TCU. He's risen this season. You had Richard LeCounte from Georgia, who was having a nice year, gets in a motorcycle accident. So it's kind of fluid in terms of where these guys are going to stack up, but there is a good amount there with that group. So I think safety is going to present some nice values, especially to teams picking early in the second round, second to early third round. I think you could get some really nice values at that position. And then the last position of strength, I would say, is quarterback. And typically, we don't have the amount of early round quarterbacks that we do this year in terms of you got Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, definite guys that are probably going, obviously Lawrence and Fields are going top 3. top 2. I think Lance is going to go top 16. And then I think you have another group of guys that could get late 1 consideration, and Zach Wilson, maybe Kyle Trask. I think Kyle Trask is really probably going in the 2nd round. I think Mac Jones has a shot at going in the 2nd round. I think he could go in the 3rd round. I think you have Jamie Newman in that mix as well on day 2. So to have 6 or 7 quarterbacks to go in the first 2 rounds, maybe early into the early 3rd round, that's a deep class at that position. You don't typically have that many quarterbacks and that many options, especially for teams picking late in the 1st round and in the 2nd round. So it's going to be really fascinating to see where these guys land and what some of these teams with aging quarterbacks do. I can't wait to see what the Colts do, the Steelers, Tampa Bay. I mean, all these teams have guys that are aging, and you could take one of these guys to develop them. Maybe some players retire, maybe they stick it out and they're drafting an heir apparent already, or maybe not. Maybe they're passing on them. They don't like them enough and they're trying to win now, so let's use that 1st or 2nd round pick on a guy that can help our quarterback try and win one more Super Bowl in the case of Brady, or Roethlisberger, or win his 1st Super Bowl in the case of Rivers. So quarterback is definitely better this year than in the typical year of the draft. Now let's hit on some positions of weakness. Defensive tackle. Now, I have not heard much buzz from scouts on tackle players. I just have not, and just chatting with them, there aren't names coming up that really have building up any kind of depth of prospects at that position. There have been guys who've disappointed, like Marvin Wilson. I think Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle from Alabama, is the best guy, but I know some teams that really aren't that high on him because he's weak against the run, and they feel he can get pushed around, lacks some physicality, is a really good inline rusher, but he's kind of one-dimensional player. They think he should go back to school, become more well-rounded, and he could end up being a high pick if he does that. But in this day and age, it's hard to see a defensive tackle going back to school when he could be the top guy at the position in his draft class, and the fact that here we are, he's entering the SEC championship game. He has 6 sacks on the season. So, I mean, that's really good production in terms of pass rush for that position. So, aside from them, you got Tafule at USC, who sat the year out, so that hurts him. The other guys at the Senior Bowl, you have some solid players, but nothing really blowing the doors off. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if you don't hear a lot of defensive tackles drafted in the early rounds of the draft. Now, next up, I would say edge rusher. Now, edge rusher is a little interesting, though, because it doesn't really have a lot of premier high-end talent. You have Rousseau out of Miami, who sat out this year as a one-year wonder. I know some scouts who think he's overrated. And then you have Carlos Basham from Wake Forest, solid defensive end, well-rounded player, but maybe lacks a little juice and super kind of edge rush, pin your ears back and go after the quarterback kind of guy, more of a solid, well-rounded, tough player. And then Kwity Paye from Michigan has had some injuries, but he flashed when he was healthy at the beginning of the year. Aiden Hutchinson got hurt. I think that's going to cause him to go lower. But the interesting thing about edge rusher is I think that there's going to be some better values at the position late in the 1st round and into the 2nd round. I think when you look at guys like Rashad Weaver with Pitt, Zaven Collins from Tulsa, who's kind of a jack of all trades in a way in terms of what you can do with him. Osai from Texas had a great game against Oklahoma State, not a lot of production in the other games. So I think at that point of the draft, you're going to see more edge rushers come off the board, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of guys going early, maybe 2 or 3 in the top 20, but not kind of what you would expect for a passing-driven league with tons of teams that need more edge rush talent. Now, another position of weakness, I haven't talked to too many teams about it yet, but I think just in my own estimation, I'm not a huge fan of the cornerback class. I think you have some nice players in Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn. Caleb Farley, I think, is a risky player. He has a great skill set, really nice 2019 season, but he struggled in 2018, has had serious injuries in his career, and then he sits out this year, so that's a missed year of development, of lack of reps, and he was raw to begin with. So Sean Wade from Ohio State, there's just something missing with him and his game where he is prone to giving up some big plays downfield, and he hasn't exactly hit a home run in his move to playing outside corner from the slot this season. So definitely it's a class that I think is kind of fluid. I think Rodarius Williams from Oklahoma State could benefit from that. While he hasn't completely blown it away during his career there, he was a solid starter, and then this year really improved and showed cover skills in terms of running the route and preventing separation. So I think he helped himself, and he could be a riser because of that solid tape from this year showing the development. Younger brother of Greedy Williams, so you have the pro pedigree is there as well with him. So really, I think this draft class overall is pretty standard. I don't think it's an exceptional. I don't think it'll be an exceptional legendary class. I don't think it's going to be a bad draft where you're just like 2013 was, for example, where you had a lot of busts in the top of the draft and throughout the first round. So every draft has its strengths and weaknesses. This kind of how it's looking right now. Here we are in December, but we'll see. You know, it's still really early in the process. I know teams are starting draft some teams are having draft meetings right now with scouts in from the season, kind of setting things up before we get into the Senior Bowl time and then Combine and everything. So after their draft meetings before the season at training camp, then they all hit the road. Then at the end of the year, there's another set of meetings, and so that's happening right now with certain teams around the league. And I think that we're going to probably get some more information out of that here in the weeks to come. I'm working on an interesting blog on some edge rusher and offensive tackle guys coming up here. Just need to get some more responses from teams because their opinion is a lot more important and a million times more relevant than my own. And that's what I try and get for you guys, is what they think, because what they think matters. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please like it, share it, send it to your friends, help us build up this channel. You can email me at draftcampbell@gmail.com, and I'm putting together a mailbag video to get that going up here in the next few weeks. And follow me on Twitter at Draft Campbell. You can follow Walt on Twitter at WalterFootball. And you can check below in the links. I got our mocks, position rankings, and a whole lot more. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you. You're awesome, and I'll be back with you soon. Saturday, mock draft, always here on YouTube. You can check it out every week. So this Saturday, new mock going up. And of course, mocks going up on the site all the time. And ranking updates every week, everything. So you guys know where it all is, walterfootball.com. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you. Take care.